It was cold and blustery. We drove for 9 hours yesterday.
You should be committed, yes.
Yeah, but we made it all the way up to, well, through the Methodist and then up the backside of Roosevelt.
And how many did you get?
None. This is the 9th year in a row we've gone out on this weekend in November and caught nothing.
Using that probably a lot better.
Yeah.
Let's just go to Thompson Island tomorrow.
Well, we've got lots of pickerel because we drank 2 pickle rods, so we ended up with 6 nice walleye. But no muskie.
Yeah, well, that's why I say go over to Thompson's for 9 hours.
Have you ever gone up the end of Portage Bay? I mean, I've heard stories of salmon running in there. I've never seen it myself.
No. I watched the salmon go up the musquash.
Yeah, but apparently they also go up, you know, when shallows up.
You know, every once in a while I start to count them off, put the word in the wrong, I gotta change it. By the time they're done, I couldn't get this grade.
Yeah, and we get to see her.
That's right.
You know, as opposed to resolution in the face.
That's right, me from being resolution.
Yeah.
Takes away from her smile, doesn't it? Take all this off. Speaking of this,
Everybody, they check these hours to make sure they do.
It was done by HR, so I'm sure it's correct.
Okay, because there are leap years in
And what's on
not me.
there. Okay, we're ready to go?
Yep.
It's out. Good morning, everyone. At least it's changed from a nice, bright, sunny day to a rainy day, so we're stuck inside for the day. So we'll call the meeting to order. It's 9:04. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest this morning in regards to items on the agenda? Councillor Bochuk?
And that's the DeBoer.
That would be 6B.
Yes, more, 6B.
Okay.
Get a pecuniary, thank you.
Any others? I also have a pecuniary with 6B, so I'll sign the book later. So I do have a resolution to move into closed session. Madam Clerk, it's the same as on the agenda?
It is identical.
Okay. So it's moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Bochuk, that we move into closed session. It's 9:05. Any discussion on the motion? Additions? Deletions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. One. We're going to take 5 minutes.
Perfect.
You're not
I think these are too hot.
I was just telling him I had to wipe the beer off, and so I was down in the city just to get a little girl. I took him on my bag this morning, I'm like, oh, I better wipe that off.
I started dating Mary Dad in '82.
It's not,
And was it-
it's not winter yet.
No, I know,
Yeah.
I'm with you,
That's
if
great.
the snow covers your feet, you're all good.
You got it.
Exactly.
So, up until the end.
Well, before.
This is why I wear my merino wool full of sun. Then I start to see outside.
Yeah.
Start in February.
Yes, exactly, well, it should know by then, no? How did everybody remember me? Had them all gathered, they all left. There. Oh, you're stuck. I got it. In the middle. Planning ahead. Yeah. We'll probably be the last.
No, that's it. I'm looking at your picture.
Oh, who knows?
That's not yours, so.
No.
Cynthia, you more?
Why?
Because we're all cool.
Yeah. Sarika.
Every day.
I'm sure Kathy will show up in a minute or two. I'll call this meeting back to order. The first hour and a bit, we were in closed session this morning. I do have a resolution coming out of there. It's moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Georgian Bay rise from closed session at 10:10 a.m. without a report. Any discussion, councillors? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. So, Mr. Fedori, you see your name's on the agenda here. Is the paparazzi here? Yeah. Apparently you've been hanging around here for 35 years.
Rumor has it.
I remember when you were on Public Works, and then I did a silly thing and ran for council back in 1997, and I think it was right around there, or early 98, you wanted to move from Public Works and be a building inspector. And lo and behold, you're a CBO now.
Thank you. No, you're not away.
Put
A
the-
little bit in the middle. Move over.
You want it in the middle? I really hate it when my head is just underneath.
There you go, there.
There.
That's upside down.
Is it upside
No.
down?
Shake
No,
hands.
it's not.
Shake hands. Look at me.
So, young fella, because I know you're younger than me. Anyway, I found this on my desk this morning. It says, oh my God, 35 years, 420 months, 1,820 weeks, 12,775 days, 306,600 hours, or 18,396,000 minutes.
But how many
How do you
beers?
feel now? You need a nap, right? Anyway, I hope they took into consideration the leap years too, because that adds an extra day there for you. So there's something you can hang on your wall. And there's also another picture. So here's something else you can hang on your wall. We hereby recognize and congratulate Dave Fedori for providing 35 years of exemplary and dedicated service to the residents of this community. The Council of the Township of Georgian Bay extends its sincere appreciation to Dave in achieving this milestone. So,
Thank you.
congratulations again.
Thank you.
That's quite an achievement. thick, so. And it's not pink either. So I think you're safe for a little while longer.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work there.
Thank you very much.
Very well.
Thank you.
Next day.
So, we've got a few minutes before our public meeting starts, so consent. It's here somewhere. There we go. So we'll do item 7, our consent agenda. A resolution moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that Council adopt the consent agenda of November 13, 2017 as amended or circulated. Are there any suggestions for amendment? Seeing none, it will read as circulated. Call the question. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. And we can do another one. Move on to 8, adoption of the agenda. I'm assuming that's Brian again. He's changing his signature. So it's moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that Council adopts the regular agenda of November 13, 2017 as amended or circulated. Any suggestions for amendment? I don't see any hands, so it'll read as circulated. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. And we've still got a few minutes. May as well let some of our public hear what councillors have been up to this month. We'll start over on the far right. This. Okay, then we'll start with Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. It's been a relatively quiet month for me, just the regular meeting with constituents and so on. However, I do have one item that I'd like to just say that we had a meeting with some of the community. I myself and a couple of the councillors had a meeting with some of our community leaders in the MacTier area, just in regards to our policing committee and the direction that perhaps that committee will be taking in the future, or we feel should be taking in the future. And I just want to say that some very interesting information came out of that in regards to that committee as well as other committees that are run in the community. And I think next month we'll perhaps bring some sort of a report back to see what the council thinks about continuing on with that committee. And that's for the north, and I believe the south feels the same way. So at this point, that would be it for me today, and we'll look forward to next month on that one.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper?
Are you ready now? I'll defer to you.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Somewhat of a quiet month. I've had a number of meetings outside of the township. The first one was on October the 12th. Seven Sound Environmental Association had an all-day meeting in Aurelia, and it was to do, started off with our normal board meeting, and then in the afternoon they had a strategic planning meeting for their new strategic plan. On October the 16th, Peter and I attended the water quality meeting at our office here, and then we had quite a few of the public show up, and I think I'll let Peter talk about the rest of that. October the 30th, I'd go to Bracebridge for the Muskoka Watershed Council Executive Meeting. We meet every quarter on that. And Nothing there to report that's of significance to our township. Oh yeah, there is one thing. There is some studies going to be done in Port Severn as part of this flood study that's being done on the Muskoka River. The district has garnered $450,000 from the federal government, and the district's paying $450,000 for a total of $900,000 to do a floodplain mapping of the Muskoka River. They're also going to include some work around Port Severn and some work over in, I think, Baysville over in Lake of Bays. As Councillor Douglas indicated, we did have a meeting up in MacTier with some of the stewards up there, and that was on November the 3rd. And on November the 6th, I had another Seven Sound Environmental Executive meeting. So I'm on 2 boards over there, and they're mainly talking about having to move out of Midland, and I believe they're going to Tay Township, so there's a major move with that organization happening. And that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Braid. Pretty standard sort of month, a lot of meetings. Effectively, certainly the district meetings, as always the council and the community services meeting, and as well Muskoka Tourism. I sit on their board as well, and so those all happen on a monthly basis, and we're moving a few things along. Nothing earth-shattering, I can't think of anything right now, but we also, as Councillor Wienko mentioned, had a water quality committee meeting on the 16th of October and had a very worthwhile presentation with respect to septic systems and how they may or may not impact water quality from a planning individual, Beth Leonard, and it was a presentation that had also been given to this council. So I think we hopefully learned a few things from that presentation, and there was really quite an excellent turnout for that meeting. So people are very engaged in water quality and the impact that various things have on that water quality. What else have we? I've been busy organizing forthcoming meetings, planned meetings for the future, including meeting with the Honey Harbor Community Advisory Group to talk about or give a presentation and discuss the possibility of resurrecting the education center for Honey Harbor. So that's another meeting that's planned next week, actually. So that's, I'm quite pleased that we're back at that table. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Very quiet month. Just dealing with some of the items that we're going to be dealing with this morning, and then some items that are in the background that will be coming to council next month, and many of them being planning related issues, as always seems to be the case. That's pretty well it.
Yeah. Councillor Kay.
Okay. Went to library board meeting. It was the last one of Barb. Our new CEO will be hosting the one this week. Constituent discussions, of course. But I also have an interesting email which I would like to read bits and pieces to you. There's a program announced shortly by the federal government. The program will be called the Great Lakes Protection Initiative. It will inject approximately $45 million of new money into the protection of the lakes. Environment and Climate Change Canada see this money as being directed into 6 priority areas: preventing algae, identifying at-risk wetlands, reducing harmful chemicals, First Nation engagement, promoting citizen science, assessing and enhancing coastal wetlands. That's basically the gist of it, and it should be announced within the next couple of months. And that's it for me.
Okay. Councillor Bochek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A fairly busy month. I made no less than 4 visits up to Whites Falls Road. As most of you are aware, the road has been closed, and there's a 72-kilometer detour to get around the closure. After making a visit to the District of Muskoka, and hearing their project analysis, we find that now this road will not be open until December the 15th, which puts them from a 5-week project up to over a 10-week project. So I've been dealing with constituents and businesses in the area. With the Oak Bay development, I've met with some people from Oak Bay. They're very interested in having a municipal dog run installed, somewhere where dogs can run freely. And I'll be approaching the budget as a non-funded issue next month after the first draft. I did meet with Councillor Douglas in Mactier. We discussed the policing committees and their value in today's electronic world, and also met with the community leaders up there as far as their engagement and moving forward with some of the committees and amalgamating them together. I had an interesting meeting with the 6 Mile Lake Ratepayers Association. The president and a director of the association invited me up to have a listen to their thoughts and feelings on the way the interim control bylaw and the direction they would like to see the community plan go with 6 Mile Lake, so there was open ears to that. A lot of time spent analyzing the budget, the first draft of the budget, and looking at where we're spending ratepayers' money, so a lot of diligence there. My volunteer hours have fallen to just about zero in the community due to a conflict of interest application that was put against me. And it affects the community when these things happen, because things like the Christmas parade, the Christmas party, things that I'm normally involved in, I have to step away from because they put me in a conflict of interest due to my position here on council. So I'm looking forward to January, and maybe I can get back in the public and start doing more community volunteer work. I did have a 2-hour meeting with Julian, I'm going to regretfully say his name wrong, Warwick, and Peter can probably help me with the pronunciation.
That's right.
About the water quality on Georgian Bay and about the raw sewage that's being dumped into the bay from the town of Midland. We had over 1 million liters of raw sewage dumped into the bay over the last 3 years. And it happens in Port McNicoll and Victoria Harbour as well. So we're trying to work on some solutions and some answers for the provincial government and understanding why this happens quite often due to stormwater and climate change. The facility just can't handle the raw sewage they have. So it ends up getting dumped in the bay. So it was a busy month, and hopefully after January I'll be more busy with more community involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Myself, I attended the Remembrance Day ceremony in Mactier on the 11th. I was also at the library board dinner for Barb Swire's retirement, and she does send a thank you card for the gift that was supplied by council. Anybody can read that after. The revised Police Services Act is ready to be tabled. And at this point, our ask for a fair distribution of the costs for policing between the towns and the townships is not on there, but our contractor, who has actually finished his service with us, is working diligently with a number of ministers, as well as the 3 mayors from the townships, to try and get this inequity in the charges through assessment changed. In regards to the policing, fortunately, we are not hitting the target they projected a number of years ago. It looks like about a 2.4% increase for 2018, which takes us to about 15,400,000. They were projecting around 17.5, 18 million a few years ago by 2018. So that works out to about $2.84 on a $200,000 assessment. Just so everyone knows, a number of years ago, the Ontario Disability Support Program was being uploaded to the province, which is a rare item. They're usually downloading to us. Currently, that is about $3.9 million, which is collected on the district levy. And in 2008, I know when that was first being uploaded, it was about 400K then, and it has continued to increase. The upload is totally there now, but the 3.9 million that it's at right now is coming out of our tax dollars at the district, and it is being put towards the debt, and that hasn't changed. And as Councillor Bocek mentioned, Road 34 has doubled in the closure time. I still haven't got the answers from the contractor as to why. I've been out to the site many times, and I'm pretty disappointed to see that there's only 1, 2, or 3 people actually working there. So there are some issues that district staff will have to deal with. I also attended last week, and of course it picked the most rotten day for traveling Highway 400, but Norm Miller came down from Parry Sound, and Chair John Klink also joined us at RVH for a first look at the new cardiac wing. And along with that wing, there's a child and youth mental health section, which will have 8 beds in it, and it will look after kids up to 18 years of age. The kids that are older than that, there's already a program in place for Simcoe Muskoka to help them along if they have some issues. The new cardiac ward will be opening about mid-December, and there will be 9 cardiologists on board. It'll be about 3 years before full service takes place, where they can do open heart surgery there, but certainly they can do the stents and some of the other stuff. Critical care dialysis started in September, so a number of people from our area, our residents, and all throughout Muskoka and North Simcoe have been going to RVH. And there is a closed section with 36 beds in it, and they will be open in December, so there should be a little faster time getting through the emergency. Some stats. Apparently there's about 85,000 emergency visits a year, which they said works out to about 300 a day. Their operating budget is $340 million. $183 million is salaries. And this is something you don't hear very often with hospitals, but RVH has had 8 consecutive balanced budgets, whereas most hospitals come in with a deficit of $1 million or more. And the hospital that used to be in Gravenhurst closed some 25 years ago. It's called the Muskoka Regional Center, and there was a proposal for a school to come in there. They've made a pitch to the government, but the government doesn't like the pitch, which would create about 300 jobs and house several hundred students. So they're going to the open market to try and sell this thing, but it's been sitting vacant for 25 years. And the town of Gravenhurst is pretty upset with the province at the moment, understandably. We did support their initiative at our last council meeting, but the province seems to think differently. As I understand it, the proposed school may put another bid in and see if the province will act on that one. And, oh, just going back to RVH, what came to light is they have 50 acres of land down in Innisfil, and they're already starting plans for a south campus, as they call it. They haven't completely filled the north campus up at Duckworth, but they want to look way out into the future, like 20 years from now, at that sort of thing. So I just happen to remember 24 years ago, our last child was born at RVH at the old campus downtown, and 4 years later they opened up the new one, and it's been growing ever since. And something to be pretty proud of. The District of Muskoka committed $3 million towards the Cancer Care Center, and the last payment for that will be next year. And this past year they dedicated $275,000 towards the cardiac ward. And of course, later on in the agenda was already in the consent agenda. Through my mayor's golf tournament, we've been donating to the Cancer Care Center and the cardiac ward over the past several years. So that's my report. And Madam CAO, since we're doing reports, do you want to do yours now? We've got an audience.
I have nothing that's not on the agenda today, Your Worship, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move into our public meeting then. Get rid of some of this paperwork. So this morning there's a public meeting scheduled for 2 proposed zoning bylaw amendments and 1 zoning bylaw and official plan amendment. I'll briefly summarize the procedure. First, the clerk will advise council as to when, how, and to whom notice of the public meeting was circulated for the proposed amendment being considered. The clerk will also advise of the appeal procedures. Next, the Township Interim Planning Director will advise of the purpose and effect of the bylaws and provide for any other information that is relevant to the application. And the clerk will summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the public will have an opportunity to speak to the zoning bylaws being considered through either me or there will be a councillor chairing one of the amendments this morning. After the public discussion, the public meeting will be closed, and council will then consider the zoning bylaw immediately following. I now declare this meeting to be a public meeting pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act to deal with the following proposed amendments. Zoning bylaw 2017 Caron for 310 Prisk Road, zoning bylaw 18 for De Boer 240 Moore Point Road, and zoning bylaw 21 and OPA 03 for Brand, that's 6980 Island, 1810 Georgian Bay. Madam Clerk?
Notices of the public meeting were sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 to 800 meters of the properties subject to the proposed amendments, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the applications. The notices were sent at least 30 days prior to today's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the amendments and a key map showing the location of the properties or description of the lands to be affected by the amendments. Other relevant information may also have been provided. These circulations were all provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and the Township of Georgian Bay's official plan. Members of the public are advised at this point that unless they make an oral or written submission to council before council makes a decision on this application, that any subsequent appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board may be dismissed by the board. Anyone who wishes to be notified of council's decision respecting the proposed zoning bylaw amendment must submit a written request to the clerk.
Thank you. And who's our staff person? That's Jamie. Good morning.
Good morning.
Again.
Good morning, members of council, your worship, and the public. My name's Jamie Robinson, and I'm a planner here with the municipality. And what I'm going to do is provide a brief overview of this first application, the Karen application. And once I'm done my brief explanation, then I'll turn it over to the applicant, and then members of the public will have an opportunity to comment. This is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment application for a property located at 310 Prisk Road, which is identified on this map here. This is an aerial of the subject lands. The property is developed with a dwelling currently and with an accessory building as currently constructed. So what the purpose of this application is to do is it's a zoning bylaw amendment to permit a games room in the upper half of a detached garage. It's a dryland boathouse in this instance because it's in the front yard. This, the applicants did go through a minor variance process to construct the dryland boathouse, and through that variance process, the variance was approved for the proposed boathouse. However, the variance indicated that the upper story would be used for storage. They would like to seek permission at this time for a games room in that upper story of the dryland boathouse. So the subject lands are identified on this map. They're currently zoned as SR1, and what's being proposed is a site-specific exception for this property. From an official plan perspective, I'll show you a few pictures here now. This is a picture of the building in question. The proposal doesn't propose any modifications to the exterior of the building. Here's another picture of it from a little closer up. Off in the distance here, it's a little difficult to see. This is a view from the structure. This is again a view of the existing dryland boathouse. These next few pictures are from inside of the dryland boathouse. So what's being proposed is a games room, an area for watching TV and that sort of thing. And that's currently what it's being used for. So these again are pictures from inside the building. So with respect to that, from an official plan perspective, the official plan for the Township of Georgian Bay does designate these lands as waterfront. It identifies that development prior to proceeding should generally be in keeping with the character of the area. And that's really
we've got a different...
Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead there. So that's really the primary objective of the official plan with respect to these developments in waterfront areas to ensure the character of the area is maintained. So with that provides a bit of an overview of the proposed boathouse. Staff haven't made a recommendation at this time. This is a public meeting again. It's an opportunity for the public to provide comments, for the owner to provide any additional information they would like to prepare. This report has two potential options for council to consider. Option one is to refer it back for the preparation of a recommendation report by staff to consider the comments that are received today. And then the second option would be to bring a bylaw forward to the bylaw portion of this meeting if council is comfortable with that and if there's not a need to address the comments that are received. So there is a draft bylaw that has been prepared. Thank you.
The District of Muskoka sent in a letter stating that they have no concerns with the application.
Is the applicant here today? And state your name for the record, and if you wish to make a presentation, come on up.
No presentation. My name is Tony Karen. I just wanted to say a few things. One is, at the minor variance hearing that we had in 2011, when the boat permit was granted, I sat down with the planner at that time, and I discussed the details of the loft. And in the plan itself, it does say storage loft. It doesn't say storage. It says storage loft on the blueprint. But I want to say that I did discuss this, and all the planners, all the inspectors that came through, seen this, and I was never corrected. So I've always thought that this was within my permit. I never ever thought that it wasn't. At the minor variance hearing, somebody asked me what I intend to use this space for, and I said a game room for me and my grandson, mostly him, and for a reading writing room, which is all it's used for. So I did ask that at the time, and it was in the minor variance. However, at the time in 2011, you didn't record it. It was just a summary, because I went and looked online, and it's not accurate. I can assure you of that, it's not accurate. So, I mean, I even had an email sent from Todd, who was the inspector or the planner at the time, and he agrees with me. He went through it fall last year, it hasn't changed a bit, and he said that it was well within the limits that he thought we applied for. So I don't think I'm asking for anything that I didn't think I had. Now, I understand I have to go through this process, but I do think that I wouldn't have done all this work, put all this money into it, if I didn't think I had the permit for it.
Thank you for that. So are there any members of the public that wish to speak to this application? Yes, ma'am, your name for the record?
Good morning, my name is Louise Rivet. Where would you like me to speak from?
You can sit down there and turn the mic on, or you can come up to the podium.
By way of history, I was a member of Committee of Adjustment when this matter came forward in 2011. My recollection is the adjustment came forward because the height on this building exceeded what was permitted within the bylaw. The reason it was requested for an additional height was because the applicant's boat on a trailer was too high for what was permitted within the bylaw. So the reason it's higher is to allow boat storage. It was never to consider any habitational use in that space whatsoever. It was just supposed to be a loft storage as opposed to, it was just a loft. It was going to be a short little loft just for storage. The height was to allow the boat. It was not to allow any of this use. There's no recollection in my notes about a writing room or a room like that. When it was being built, if staff didn't recognize it, that should not become the responsibility of the residents to have to deal with an amendment because staff didn't do their job. Forgiveness applications should be stated that they're forgiveness applications, and this is not what was permitted or anticipated when the original variance went out. We specifically asked what the use would be for, and it was for storage. I believe the notes will reflect that. I'm here, I have the recollection. Specifically, it was a height issue. So those are my memory of that, and it was not used for any games room or writing rooms. Sorry.
Thank you. Can I add a comment here? This is half the boathouse. The other half of the boathouse, you've seen had the RV door, the big door. That is the side that we asked for the boat to be higher. Because my boat on a trailer is much higher, not this side. So she is correct. That's what the minor variance is for. Okay? But it's not on this side of the building. Completely opposite side. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak to this application? Seeing none, any final comments before I draw this into council's hands, Mr. Cron?
No, I'd just like to thank the council and your worship for looking at this at this point in time. I just want to say, whatever it's zoned for, I will apply for whatever the building code there is. I wouldn't want to have my grandson up there and not have it abide by the code.
Thank you. The council, bring it into your hands. Do you have any questions? It's a two-part resolution here. Either we deal with the bylaw today or we just accept comments and let staff go away with the comments and bring back a report next meeting. So it's up to you what you want to do. So, Councillor Kay?
I have no problem with this at all. I would be willing to sign to recommend the second recommendation. But I do have a question that may prohibit that. I see there's a propane stove up here. I don't know what is it a propane stove?
It's a propane fireplace.
Fireplace, okay. I don't know what the legalities are of a second-story propane stove. I don't know what the legalities are of a propane stove closeness to windows. I wish the fire chief was here so I could ask him. But I would like to make sure that, especially with it being a boathouse where there would be boats with gasoline, I assume, being stored in it, I'd like to make sure that that is a safe thing to have in that room prior to saying I'm, signing off on it.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Through you, your worship, in order to get final sign-off from the building department on this, so what you're being asked to do today is to a zoning bylaw, or to consider a zoning bylaw amendment application, and that's what this